This episode is brought to you by Factor. Ready to make this your best season yet? Eating well has never been easier with Factor's huge selection of delicious, chef-crafted, never-frozen meals delivered straight to your door. Plus, Factor meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so you can spend less time cooking and cleaning and spend more time doing what makes you happy. From keto to calorie smart to gourmet plus, Factor has meals for everyone, and it's way cheaper than ordering delivery all the time. Get started at factormeals.com/command50off and use code command50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks.
I am Jimmy Wong.
And today, we're talking about magic cards. Believe it or not, we again with this.
I thought we were like giving away Xboxes or something.
No, that was last week. Or a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure when this is coming out.
Okay, yes, we are talking about magic cards today and staples and whether or not they're worth the price. We don't talk about prices of cards very often, but today we're going to dive into that.
Yeah, there's a lot of really expensive cards that you could buy, but is it worth your hard-earned money to buy cardboard? We'll find out.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. I think the first thing we're going to talk about is maybe one of the most controversial in terms of price cards.
It's the most celebrated when they're reprinted, and it's the most talked about in other formats, and the way it shapes and warps the game even.
Yeah.
That's right, it's Fetchlands.
It's Fetchlands.
So not just any Fetchlands, we're talking about lands that specifically tap, pay a life, and you can search your library for a land with either of one of two basic land types.
Right. So this is the traditional land types, or Fetchlands in the most traditional sense. Right now, the prices vary, as they always do. Windswept Teeth is the cheapest, sitting at $14, all the way up to Misty Rainforest, which is currently around $33.
Oh, I would think the red-white one would be the cheapest, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, the Greenlands you would expect to be a little bit higher. This is honestly right about the window that we expect Fetchlands to be at on average. There was a very high point for a while where they were all like 50 plus.
50 plus, yeah.
Which is insane. This is about where it settles now that they've sort of reprinted more fancy versions of it regularly.
Yeah.
And the question...
Back when they were reprinting Khans of Tarkir, it was a huge moment, and they all dropped down to as low as around 10 to 15, and now you can see it sort of settled above that. But they've been in the Masters set since then, so they do come up quite a bit.
So when we're deciding if a card is worth buying, there's a lot of different things to consider. I mean, playability, of course, can it go in a lot of different decks? Is it as powerful as it is expensive? Specifically for Commander, I think is an interesting thing. And Fetchlands sort of sit in a weird spot because there are a lot of alternatives to Fetchlands. None of them quite rise to the occasion of this 10 that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's the flexibility and the fact that they can find one of two land types, which means that, in Commander, more often than not, decks are multiple colors, and fixing your mana and making sure you have the right colors of mana are very important. And also, Fetchlands do have a very contentious spot in Commander because a lot of other formats want them.
Right.
So it's not just Commander pushing up the price. This is one of the rare instances. We're going to talk about a lot of cards today, and some of them it's like just Commander is pushing the price. But here we've got Modern, Legacy, and everything past that too.
So I want to say that like mechanically, Fetchlands are worth it.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like them. They're really good in synergy. Like synergy-wise for decks that are trying to sacrifice things, for decks that are working out of the graveyard, for landfall decks. There's a lot of different reasons that you would just want to run as many Fetchlands as you possibly can in your deck's color identity. And you can sort of make that up by running some of the cheaper Fetchlands, the ones that come in tapped, the ones that only search for basics. I guess Prismatic Vista is the most expensive of them all, sitting at $40 right now.
But you have Evolving Wilds, Terraforming Expanse. Right. But again, they're only going to find you basic lands as opposed to the Fetchlands, which, again, they get better over time.
So there's a lot of reasons why Fetchlands are good. We don't really need to enumerate them all here, but the question is, are they worth it? And I mean, if we're talking about like, look, you've got a finite amount of money, you've got $100 that you want to spend on magic cards, and you're like, okay, I can buy like 3 or 4 Fetchlands with that, and I'll improve the mana base of one of my favorite decks.
But what do I lose for the rest of it? Because now I'm down to like $60 or $40, right?
And it's like the Fetchlands will improve things, but the thing about Fetchlands, the counterpoint to them being sort of worth it, is if you buy Fetchlands, they're only sort of as good as the lands they're fetching.
Aha. So it's a package deal.
Right. So you sort of need Shocklands, which are expensive. You need Triomes, which are expensive. You could get the Surveil lands, which are expensive. Those are sort of the peak reasons to buy Fetchlands.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, right? For a lot of players that are just entering into the game, it's not just the fetch land, it's everything on top of it.
Right.
Getting a fetch land and just getting a basic with it, it's like at that point, it's like, okay, not a huge difference between that and your Evolving Wilds, unless it's the entering tapped bit. But once you're a player that, let's say, has been in the game for a long time, you played during all the Ravnica sets, you just have naturally opened a bunch of Shocklands, then the fetch lands get a lot more appealing.
Yeah, maybe you opened a lot of Murders at Karlov Manor. Maybe you were the one.
Oh, man.
And you have...
I would have opened a lot more if I realized how good those Surveil lands are going to be, right?
Were, for sure. So if you have a lot of fetchable lands floating around, if you already have Shocks, if you already have lands with dual types, if you have Tango lands, those are probably the most affordable of the fetchable lands that can come in tapped. You have to have 2 basics for them to come in untapped.
Yeah.
There's also cycling lands, the bicycle lands.
Yeah, from Amonkhet era.
Yeah, that you can fetch them up. Those are cheaper ones. If I was going to recommend a set of lands to invest in, I think it would be fetch lands above Shocks and Triomes and even Surveil lands, which we talk about all the time here. Because you can sort of make them pretty good until you have the rest of the mana base to make them really good.
Especially if you're a 2-color deck. Because a big problem, too, with like a 3-color deck is all of a sudden the number of fetches that work in your deck explode. Because keep in mind that you can play a Windswept Heath, which is a green-white fetch land, in a deck that only plays green or only plays white. The cards themselves don't have a color identity. And so that's I would say, you're going a little too far if you're buying fetches for off-color reasons.
Do you play off-color fetches?
Only in decks that care about landfall or things like that. And even then, sometimes I find that like, well, but I've got a lot of cultivates in here and stuff. You know, I'm just better off having more basics.
Right.
Because running into the problem where you don't have things to fetch up anymore has happened, and that's not a place where you want to be.
Yeah, the other thing I want to talk about is like there have been enough land cycles now that you don't need a ton of money to have a functioning, like, decent mana base.
Yeah, is that the floor, by the way? I'm trying to build a functioning mana base, and then at what point do fetches come in? Either do they need to be there for the functioning mana base, or are they something that's on top of that, right?
Yeah, I think that's the interesting question. Is you can make a perfectly good mana base without them. You definitely can. You can have a deck that plays lands on tap, plays on curve, and you don't need fetch lands. But
yeah, most precons kind of do that, right?
Well, yeah, but once you start to add fetch lands in for mechanical reasons, you can really turn your mana base into it's contributing to how your deck actually works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's a part of the engine rather than just like, it's mana you needed to play Magic. Once you introduce Fetchlands, once you introduce MDFCs, now your mana base really becomes part of the synergy of your deck. I think if you're at that point, for me, Fetchlands are absolutely decent places to invest.
Yes, I think, as from that lens, which is like, these are cards that will almost always retain their value. Even if you buy them at a slightly higher price and they just get reprinted, it's gonna go back up over time. I think also a good consideration is how, precise and technical and combative and sort of like professional is your playgroup. Because in looser playgroups, it's okay if you don't have the fetch lands and things enter tapped or things are a little bit slower or one turn behind. As you start to crank up the nozzle on like, hey, we're playing for realsies here, we're playing for keepsies, then the fetch lands and the small amount of value that you get from them, they do add up over time, getting that surveil land, making sure you're always hitting your colors on time to cast your spells on time. So in those cases too, they're a better investment because they will make a difference in the games. It's hard to really tell, especially as a newer player, to look at the fetch land and go like, is this going to really make a big difference in my game? But a more senior veteran player or players that are in challenging playgroups, they will make a bigger difference. So that's also a case for investing in them, because as you play more, presumably your play is going to get better, and so will the play of other people around you.
Right. It's not a card that is ever going to go out of fashion.
Yeah.
Is the other thing.
Yeah, and Magic knows this as well, so it could be that you also just want to wait for a reprint.
Yes.
They will happen.
Getting a set of Fetchlands is definitely, I think, worth it at a certain point in your Magic career, but waiting until that reprint comes around will save you a bunch of money.
Yeah, it's more of a matter of when to buy them, unless you don't care about that $2 to $10 difference or whatever it is.
Right. All right. If you want to pick up those cards while you're supporting the show, you can do so at our affiliate link. We would really appreciate it. If you go to cardkingdom.com/command, you can get Fetchlands or any of the cards that we're talking about today. We're going to be talking about a lot of expensive cards and really debating whether it's worth you investing in. But if you order it at Card Kingdom, that you know you can get a ton of those cards in the same place at good quality, and you can get it shipped to you on time and safely.
And the cheaper alternatives.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're talking about all of the other things that you can buy that aren't, that fill the same slot as these expensive staples down the line. But Card Kingdom is a great place to pick up all of those cards in one place, get them safely to you, and while you're shopping at Card Kingdom, you are supporting the show if you use our affiliate link at cardkingdom.com/command.
And if you're like me, you buy all your fetches and shocklands and you store them in one binder that's called your lands binder because you got it at ultrapro.com/command. I love Ultra Pro. They have all sorts of binders. They got 9-page binders, so 3, 3, 3. They also have 4 card binders where it's 4 in a row. So for those playset collectors out there. So the reason I love Ultra Pro is they have just all of the product that matches exactly how you want to collect, how you want to display, and how you want to show off your collection and protect it. So whether or not you're getting the new Apex sleeves with every set, that has the art that's themed to the set with the beautiful printing and great shuffle feel, or you're just picking up some old classics or the Mana 8 line because they look so nice when they get signed at MagicCons. ultrapro.com/command has your back. They've been selling out really quickly of all the Final Fantasy stuff, but I believe they see this happening and are reprinting a lot of it and putting it back in the store. So I've been checking on that website every day. I picked up a couple of new things. I bought some more playmats, Rachel.
No, Jimmy, you have so many
There
playmats.
was a golden chocobo one. I had to get it. Ultra Pro is the place to get that sort of stuff. And make sure you sign up for their newsletter or follow them on social to hear when they're going to be back in stock on certain things. But of course, when new sets come out, they have all that stuff there. So ultrapro.com/command. Be like me, buy more playmats.
And the final way to support us is directly by going to patreon.com/commandzone. All of our patrons are a huge part of our community here. You get to be a part of our Discord. You get to come in and chat with me, Josh, Jimmy, the entire team. You get access to game nights and extra turns a day early without ads. Plus, at certain tiers, you get access to exclusive content like Turn Talks, which is just a conversation we have after every episode of Extra Turns. How'd the game go? What did we draw? What did we love? What are we changing about the deck after that?
How dare Jordan King make blah, blah,
How
blah.
dare Jordan King make blah, blah, blah. So if you're a big fan of Extra Turns, getting access to Turn Talk will unlock a whole new dimension to it. It is a ton of fun. So support the show at patreon.com/commandzone. Plus, we shout out one lucky patron every single podcast episode. And this one is dedicated to James Wood. James.
You rock.
You would.
All right. You would. And you did. All right. The next card we're going to talk about, we're still talking about lands here, but now they are the channel lands. So when we say channel lands, we're not talking about channel fireball. We're talking about channeling. So lands
that sounds busted.
It does sound busted, yeah. These are lands that have a channel ability on them, which means you pay a mana cost and discard it from your hand, and then it will do something pretty good, typically. These were in Kamigawa, the Return to Kamigawa. Neon Dynasty, yeah. And also their mana abilities are usually reduced by the number of legendary creatures you control.
Their channel abilities.
Their channel abilities, right. And they're also just legendary lands that enter untapped and tap for the color that they are. So the big one is Boseiju, who endures. It's 1 in the green to channel it, and you destroy an artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land opponent controls. They do get to fetch up a new land with a basic land type put on the battlefield, but just for 1 in the green, really hard to interact with.
Often just a green because
you're commander. And I have seen this literally win games more than any other land in the game.
Yeah, but
win games or just stop games from going off in certain ways.
I think the second one I have seen
win more
than Boseiju. It's Otawara Soaring City.
Yeah.
This is the same. It's the blue one, but it's 3 in a blue to channel Otawara, and you can return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. It again is reduced. This one is like, well, what could they have? There's a silence effect. They're not allowed to cast stuff at flash speed, and then they channel in Otawara, and you're like, no!
Your counterspell looks really bad in that scenario. Yeah. So channel abilities are so good. They're sneaky, they're powerful, and not just that, they take a land slot and they just make it infinitely better at no cost to you, really, outside of losing a basic land that can't be fetched up by a cultivator or whatever, or
These
a Farseer.
do have a heavy cost, though. They're extremely powerful. They're playable in every format. Boseiju sitting at $45. Odawara is at $28. The black one, Takanuma, is at $11. And Iganjo is still honestly cheap at $6.50.
Yeah.
There's the red one, Sokenzan, as well, which is even cheaper. But when we're talking about the channel lands, it tends to be
The first three.
The first three.
Yeah, and then Iganjo is really good. A lot of commanders have 4 toughness or lower. So, these cards are just bonkers, I believe. And they feel so good when you have them in your hand. They feel so good when you can just play it as a land. Yes, I do that too. But boy, it doesn't feel good to necessarily go in a store and look at their price.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one because I think when you look at them, you're like, of course they're powerful. They're very free. They come in untapped. It's very difficult to argue with why these are expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
There really aren't a ton of functional alts. We're getting closer. They're definitely playing with the lands are spells thing a lot.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of modal double-faced cards, which I think kind of live in this slot as well. We've even seen the adventure lands from Final Fantasy. So we're seeing a lot of, like, it could be a land, it could be a spell that the channel lands live in, and they're still holding the highest price tag.
Yeah, because even cards like Sink into Stupor, you have to pay 3 life for that to enter untapped, and that's like $10.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of lands, and you look at any deck list, and the moment it starts showing more of these lands in their land slots, it's like, oh, wow, that's a lot of just free card slots.
Yeah.
It opens up another space. Maybe now they can play one less interaction spell because they have the Sink into Stupor and the Odawara.
Right.
And it didn't cost them a card in the deck, and then they can play something really fun and sweet. So that feels worth it, right?
That's the thing is you look at these and you're like, I don't want to spend $10 on a bounce spell. Like that's not
right.
Like that's so bounce spells are free.
I want to be a mythic 7-drop that wipes the board.
But yeah, you do have to think about it. Like you have to look at it through a slightly different lens where you're like, okay, what I'm buying is the spot for that mythic dragon.
Yeah, there you go.
So I don't have to cut, the 6 mana thing that I love for interaction. I'll just cut a basic and I'll put in an MDFC.
Yeah, would you pay someone to wait in line for you so you didn't have to sleep overnight to get the new iPhone or whatever?
No.
No.
I will
But
wait.
this is kind of like that, where it's like you're not actually buying the spot in line. You're doing it so that you can have the convenience of doing the thing you actually want somewhere else.
Which is not standing in line.
Not standing in line, not freezing your butt off, and then finding out you can only buy one.
So, yeah, the MDFCs are definitely alts that you could put in this slot. I also want to talk about the cycling cards from Lord of the Rings. These don't look like lands.
But
because
they are.
They're spells with land cycling 1. So Troll of Khazad-dûm is a 6 mana 6/5 that just has super menace, can't be blocked unless by 3. And then he has swamp cycling 1. But the thing about that is if you pay 1 mana to go get a swamp and then you play that swamp, it's sort of like you got a tapped swamp.
Right. Because
Yeah,
you tapped a land for it. Maybe the colors are a little messed up there, but it's not just any swamp, it's a swamp card.
Yeah.
So
if you could go get a shockland, you could get a basic,
God
you
the
could
Shrine,
get
whatever you want.
a triome. So Troll of Khazad-dûm is sort of sneaky a land, especially if it's getting an untapped land.
Yeah.
So I think those also kind of fill this slot. They're not as efficient and they're not as fast as the channel lands are. So you lose some of that. But those are decent alts if you just want to sort of blur the lines between your lands and your spells a little bit more.
Yeah. But it's kind of boring to do that, especially if you don't care about having a 6 mana creature in your deck. Now, if you're a Reanimator deck, Trolls of Khazad-dûm looks amazing.
MVP, you got to do that.
Yeah, that's the counterpoint to this is that, once again, we're talking about the thing that isn't necessarily what you go home and tell all your friends about that happened in the Magic game. It wasn't, I played my commander and then, oh my gosh, I Boseju'd something.
You're like, oh.
Oh, it's no, you put together that crazy engine and da-da-da-da-da, and maybe along the line Boseiju saved it from being blown up, but it was the engine that was the exciting part. So they do feel, it doesn't match the excitement level of what Magic wants to be for Commander players versus the actual utility and just eat your veggies part of how powerful these are.
Right. I think, and it's also possible that they only make your deck a very small percentage better.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you look at a Plains versus an Iganjo, like just a basic Plains versus Iganjo, like often Iganjo will just get played as a Plains.
As a Plains, yeah.
Yeah.
And white has an abundance of removal spells.
Right.
That they're going to be more efficient and more powerful than Iganjo is.
Right. So
and green has better ways of getting rid of artifacts and enchantments too, right?
it does. So you're like, okay, I'm spending $45 to have like a naturalize sometimes and a forest other times.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like it actually improves your deck that much. But the nice thing about these is they go in a lot of decks. They're super free to put in, and when you can build around them, they're incredible.
Yeah.
You have like a Light from the Loam or any way to bring them back to your graveyard, play them out of your graveyard. They're completely busted.
I think this is one of those things where if you do happen to buy one and you just buy one, you can do a lot of our friends use this system where they just have one version of a card and then they'll use a double face card or the backside of something to show like, hey, look, this isn't another deck. Or our friend Vinny has a binder he brings around that has all of his expensive stuff in it, so that he doesn't have to buy multiple copies of it.
Right.
Because that one copy literally will go in pretty much every single green deck you ever build for Boseiju. That's the value of it there.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, it's not that exciting, but yes, these
They're
are
worth it. Yeah.
And if you buy it once, you'll be happy you did.
I will say they are very much due for a reprint. They've only seen one printing. I just don't know. It's not like a Fetchland. They also have their Sink into Stupors that they might want to reprint first, right? There's a long line before maybe Iganjo and these things come back into play. So it's going to be
a couple of years.
It's going to be tough to really time that up, I think.
Yeah. We shall see, but they are indeed worth buying.
All right, let's talk about a card that has to get reprinted soon. Please, for the love of goodness.
Oh, God. Okay, so this one was originally on my list. It's Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. This is one of my favorite cards to put into decks. I love building monocolored. I have a lot of Nykthoses. It is currently $50.
But this is a land that I have seen win games.
Yes.
Just by itself.
Yes.
Because it is essentially Gaia's Cradle in a lot of decks.
I mean, it feels like Gaia's Cradle, where it's very feast or famine, right?
Yeah.
So it taps for colorless regularly. It's a legendary land, but it has an activated ability that says 2 tap, choose a color, add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color that is equal to your devotion to that color. So it's great in monocolor decks or in heavy one-color decks, especially ones that commit to the board. And it can like turbocharge any deck that like in any color. So if you're playing white, you have a lot of stuff on the board. You can cast an angel way above curve, and that's in a color that doesn't have a lot of acceleration lands. It doesn't have a lot of alternative ways to be like really explosive. So
red is really good as well. It's funny because black is actually where it's at its worst. But it's essentially saying, hey, what if every one of your decks could play a Cabal Coffers type effect?
Right.
Especially the monocolored and two-colored ones.
Yeah, I mean, I run Nykthos in Cabal Coffers decks.
I mean,
just because you're like,
it's just another way, because you have cards out there that are like black, 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 black.
Right, yeah.
And immediately Nykthos is mana positive, right?
Right. Nykthos is great. It is one of the best payoffs for playing monocolored, and oh my God, why hasn't it been reprinted?
Why? We've been back to Theros. You thought that would have been the perfect time. Pre-cons, imagine throwing this in a pre-con. Everyone would be smashing the buy button on that sucker, right? But now at this point, it's almost gotten out of the range to be printed in pre-cons.
It's really frustrating because you're like, $50 is too expensive for Nykthos.
Way too expensive.
It's too expensive. It isn't that good. Like, it can't ramp you when you don't have things, which is sort of when you want to ramp.
Yeah, but when it's good, oh my goodness.
But it's so fun to play with,
good.
and I'm just really bummed that the price is so high because I can't really tell you that it's worth it. But Wizards, this is my plea for you to give it a real reprint.
Our plea. I don't have enough of these, and every time I'm like, oh, Nykthos would go great in this. Dang it.
I'm not spending $50 on Nykthos.
Yeah, I don't want to take it out of the other deck. I don't want to do the system. It's like, okay, fine. There are like artifacts that do a similar thing, but they come in tapped. They're artifacts, they're not lands. Right. So there really is no good alternative at the land slot for something like this. It's outside of Cabal Coffers, right? And that's a mono black type thing.
Or the one that, gives you mana for the black creatures in your graveyard. Right. That's very narrow.
Super narrow,
It's only been printed in Theros, the list, and a Pro Tour promo.
The list,
You're like, thank God.
Yeah, the list may as well not be a reprint because it's so hard to get them out of the,
Anyway, don't buy Nykthos yet because it's so soft to a reprint. If they reprint it, it's going to plummet to $20. Yes. So don't buy it now. Yes. Just wait and tweet about it.
It's probably a really good secret lair, to be honest. God, don't give them ideas, Jimmy. Don't give them ideas. They probably had the idea already.
All right, let's move on to the next category of cards.
This is a Rachel category.
This is a Rachel
sure.
category for sure.
But it's one I didn't realize is actually it's quite up there in price.
Yeah, so this I lumped them all together. This is the white combat win cons section. Because white doesn't have a ton of super explosive win cons where it goes from like a fine board to a win the game board. It has Moonshaker Cavalry, it has Akroma's Will, and to some degree it has Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite.
Yeah.
And all
8
of those
mana, 4 mana, 7 mana.
Yeah. All of them are like, okay, if I cast this, I can probably win the game from having a ridiculous board state.
Yeah.
So Moonshaker Cavalry sitting at $18. Akroma's Will is at $16 despite multiple reprints. Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite, $20.
They reprinted a couple of times too.
In a lot of other colors, there's a lot of redundancy for how you can win the game. Green has like 4 million overruns. You can get them for $3. And so you look at white's overruns and you're like, why would I pay $20?
Yeah.
This?
It's interesting. It's almost more likely that Wizards will print a new white overrun as opposed to reprinting the old white overrun type effects.
Which is honestly fine. I was looking at alternatives that have a similar effect, that are white cards that are like, okay, you have a board state, now you can win the game. And most of them sort of require you to do something else or are extremely mana intensive or happen over the course of multiple turns.
Or you just never want to play it, like Cathar's Crusade.
Cathar's Crusade is budget now. Cathar's Crusade, well, not budget. It's down to $6.50, but it's much farther down than it used to be.
Yeah, it's not budget for your time and your brain power, but it definitely is a more budget card because it takes a lot of accounting and moment counters and a billion dice.
Speaking of accounting, Starlight Spectacular is a pretty good option. This is an enchantment for 2 white. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, choose creatures you control one at a time until each creature you control has been chosen. Each of those creatures gives +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature chosen before it. So you choose one, it gets +0/+0. You choose the second one, it gets +1/+1. The third one gets +2/+2, and then you have to remember that in combat. But yes, if you have a big wide board and you play this, you will probably be able to kill people.
Yeah.
Probably, but it will take you a long time to figure it out.
Yeah, white almost wants to just go wide instead of overrun.
Right.
It's just like, whatever, just make a million
just
1/1s
go around
instead. Yeah, just who cares about how big each of them are?
Yeah, like I've tried to put Starlight Spectacular into decks because I was like, it's cheaper, it's cool, it does the thing, and then I play it, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is so hard.
Yeah, and then Jazal Goldmane's a classic. They've reprinted a billion times, but it requires you to pay 5 mana on a creature.
Yeah, it's so telegraphed. It's 4 mana to get him in play, 5 mana, and you only buff him for the number of attacking creatures you control. So you have to have had all of the creatures on the turn before you actually play and activate Jazal Goldmane.
I'd say Mirror Entity is my favorite of these, just because it works in a lot of different type of decks as well. But yeah, it doesn't feel like white has a lot of great ways of doing it, but it also doesn't feel like white's trying to give you ways to do it. Yeah. They're like, you know what, just fly over them. Hit them with angels and vigilance.
Yeah, I like hitting them with a 5/5 until they figure out that
the 5/5 is what's killing them. Yeah.
Why is my life total so low? It's like, I've been hit 4 times by 5/5. So yeah, if you're looking for ways to sort of simplify your white win con strategies, I do think it is probably worth investing in these win cons. But it kind of is boring to invest in cards that win the game because you're like, you know what? I've won the game with Craterhoof a million times. Like, I don't want to. I'm going to take Craterhoof out. I'm going to put something else in.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how Moonshaker Cavalry was less impressive because it did exactly what Craterhoof did for me. It was just like, I was like, yeah, okay, cool.
Well, it's also harder to get an 8-drop into play in white.
Yeah, exactly. I would say it's funny because Akroma's Will is, I think, the best of all of these. It's got the double ability if your commander's out. And Akroma's Memorial is also pretty good because it's colorless.
Yep.
But I don't really find myself wanting to play Elesh Norn a lot of times because it's a card that if it doesn't win on the spot, it makes everyone kind of unhappy too, right? Unless they remove it or whatever. So there's that effect to it as well. It's just white's kind of just in a tricky spot. Maybe white should never win a game again.
Maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I would say that like Akroma's Will is probably worth it. You can put it into a lot of decks. It has flexible use cases. Like it can protect your board from damage-based board wipes. It can gain you a lot of life. It's good in like keyword decks, that kind of thing. Moonshaker Cavalry, I think, is probably not worth it at $18. I think you can figure it out without Moonshaker Cavalry.
If you're in mono white, hopefully you're killing them some other way, like Rachel said, with a 5/5 in the air.
Grind them out. Gain too much life. Become the problem.
I love that.
Yeah.
So,
All
yeah.
right. So I don't think that these are quite worth it. I think you can make do with what white has, but I agree. It's annoying.
And I think Akroma's Will also, and the whole Will series, has a good chance of hitting reprints, as they've already seen, I think, 1 or 2 now.
Yeah, they've been put them in a lot of precons.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to go through a lot more staples that you know and love. We're going to tell you whether we think that they are worth investing in right now or maybe down the line. But first, we've got a few words from our sponsors.
All right, Josh, I'm calling you out.
Well, it's about time, Jimmy. Pistols at dawn.
No, what? No, about what you said about Factor.
Wait, did I use it, like it, and it saved me a bunch of money?
That you have an entire spreadsheet of all your personal reviews of Factor meals? No, you're making that up.
I'm the king of spreadsheets. Why would you not believe that? You know what? To prove it, I will put a link in the show notes to my spreadsheet so everybody out there can see it.
Oh, snap.
Seriously, Factor meals are amazing, and they've helped me lose over 20 pounds recently. Before Factor, fast food and delivery was just kind of my quickest thing to fit into my schedule, but now I get chef-crafted meals sent right to my door, and they're ready in less than 5 minutes. It just makes eating healthy so much easier. Factor has options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, basically whatever strategy you want. You get to choose from over 45 meals every week, and hey, if you want some recommendations, check out my spreadsheet. My personal favorite right now is the Indian-style butter chicken, but there are a ton of dishes right now I think are great.
Dang, well, I stand corrected.
That will teach you to ever doubt my ability to optimize, Jimmy.
Get started at factormeals.com/command50off and use code command50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
That's code command50off at factormeals.com/command50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, factormeals.com/command50off.
Hail, fellow thrill seekers! It is I, White Plume Adventurer, explorer of dungeons and breaker of formats. Recently, I've discovered a way to venture without needing to bring extra Undercity tokens for the whole table. Audible! Audible is your secret entrance to whole new worlds of fantasy, adventure, horror, and more. Get ready to forge a relationship with your new favorite story among the vast arena of literature as you draw from Audible's massive archive of audiobooks. And then, I guess, ascend to the throne of the Dead 3. Okay, the last Undercity room is hard, but you get it! I just completed Dungeon Crawler Carl, a thrilling romp that had me fully enthralled from the first word. Plus, Audible has over 1 million audiobooks, podcasts, and originals, including new releases. So take the initiative and try Audible today!
Start listening and discover what's beyond the edge of your seat. New members can try Audible now free for 30 days and dive into a world of new thrills.
Visit audible.com/command or text command to 500-500. That's audible.com/command or text command to 500-500.
All right, everybody ready for lunch, Mander?
Yeah. Oh, my food's here. Bareback.
What'd you get?
I got a cheeseburger.
I would have gotten more on it. You know, like meat or a bun, maybe?
No, this isn't the whole thing. I ordered from a service that delivers each ingredient in a separate package. Oh, here's more. Oh man, I hate it when they send the top bun before the bottom one.
It seems very inconvenient.
Yeah, but I get a ton of packages. Woo!
Does it all show up?
Sometimes, most times. Well, if the price of beef happens to change between the time I order and delivery, they might just cancel the whole thing.
This is a terrible system.
Yeah, I guess it is.
With Card Kingdom, you'll always get every card you order in one convenient package. No wrangling tons of envelopes and tracking numbers. Plus, they've got great customer service that will go above and beyond to make sure your order is perfect. When you go to cardkingdom.com/command, you can support the show while shopping from Card Kingdom's huge selection of singles, sealed product, and more. Again, that's cardkingdom.com/command.
All right, and then I'm going to attack.
Ooh, maybe it's the meat. Nope. Catch up.
Ugh.
Do you guys think this is near mint?
Okay, I think we've taken this metaphor as far as it can go. Aha, Cyclonic Rift. Yeah, this deck feels like a 3.
Updating your decks?
No, I'm just sorting them into commander brackets.
Oh, just use ARCHIDEKT. It's the easiest way to get an estimate of your deck's bracket. Plus, you can click the number and it'll lay out the reasoning. It takes things like tutors, extra turns, and land destruction into account, and game changers are all clearly marked. It even recognizes 2-card combos. See? It's saying your deck is actually a 4. It'll be a 3 if you got Rhystic Study.
Huh. Okay, 4 it is.
ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and check your deck's commander brackets. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/commandzone.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking about commander stables and whether or not they are worth their price tag. Cha-ching. It's kind of like The Price is Right, or is the price wrong, Bob
Could be.
Barker? Tell me. I don't know quite
This
yet.
price is kind of wrong.
This price is crazy wrong, but this card is crazy good. It's a cube favorite.
Yeah,
It's a Canlander favorite. It sees play, I think, in Legacy in some places too. Yeah, it's crazy.
It used to be an 8-cast. It's Shadowspear, which is currently sitting at $38.
But it's just a 1-drop.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, that's why.
So this is a single mana for an equipment that gives +1/+1, gives trample and lifelink, has a bonus ability that you can pay 1 and make permanents your opponent's control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Remember that line of text? It'll get you.
It'll get you.
And it equips for only 2 mana.
Permanents, by the way, not just creatures.
Oh, yeah.
This thing is pushed for sure.
Shadowspear is great. This is a really good magic card. Trample and lifelink are like incredible keywords.
Yeah. I used to play a lot of Basilisk Caller because I was always like, you know what? I just need life at some point. And Shadowspear does that for a cheaper cost, and it gives trample, which I think is so important.
But the question here is not, is Shadowspear good? It is. Is it worth $38?
Whew.
So the first thing I did was like, okay, what if you want a Shadowspear but you want to replace, but you don't want to spend $38 and you want to replace it, what would you replace Shadowspear with? And it's sort of tough because you're like, okay, if you're looking for efficient equipment that just equip really easily and like kind of do a thing, there are some kind of alternatives like Lost GT and Pip-Boy 3000 are equipment that we both like a lot and play a lot.
Yep. But none of them have trample or lifelink on them.
Yeah, they don't do what Shadowspear does necessarily. They're just also cheap equipment.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, okay, well, what if we like do a lifelink comp like a Basilisk Caller?
Okay.
That's an option, but it doesn't do the trample thing, which is sort of the more powerful, more win the game side of it.
And it doesn't do the hexproof indestructible thing either.
Right, of
And it doesn't
course.
give you any stat buffs. So I would say Basilisk Caller is the closest, but when you put them side by side, Shadowspear looks just so much better.
It looks a lot better. I mean, the Basilisk Collar is only $3.50, so that's a huge difference in terms of price there.
And I would be very happy using Basilisk Caller until I got my hands on a Shadowspear. I don't think I would feel the difference too much.
Here's the question, though. What if we went to Shadowspear's brave big brother? Loxodon Warhammer.
All right.
This is an old
mana.
staple in Commander. It's 3 mana to cast, 3 mana to equip, but it gives the equipped creature +3/+0 and gives it trample and lifelink.
I think if you're cheating mana cost for equipment, amazing. If you just have a lot of ramp, great. But it costs 6 mana to do the whole thing, and Shadowspear costs 3 mana to do the whole thing.
It's just half as good as Shadowspear. The +3 power does not nearly make up for the difference, and of course the price makes sense. Warhammer's only $1.25, but yeah, if you were cheating the equip cost, then I do think Loxodon Warhammer does a reasonable approximation.
Yeah, I'd say between Basilisk Caller and Loxodon Warhammer, one of them is going to fit your deck better. And if you're looking for the Shadowspear type effect, or if you care about lifelink more, or if you care about trample more, right, then you'll be able to choose which one of the two. Well, sorry, trample versus death touch for Basilisk versus Loxodon. There's also Haunted Cloak, a card that I always find myself putting into a digital list, but then never actually going through with.
It's really close. It's 3 mana to cast. It's
really
1 to equip.
close.
It gives Vigilance, Trample, and Haste.
Yeah, Haste is fun.
So Trample and Haste are the big ones here. Vigilance, I think, is a little underrated, but it's not lifelink.
Yeah, it's not lifelink. It's still good, but it's not.
This one is just a good evase. Like, we have a couple other evasion comps. If you're like really leaning into the trample side of it, you could do something like Borak Battlehorns, which says it has trample and it can't be blocked by more than one creature. That creature is getting in. It costs 2 to cast, 1 to equip, or something that grants flying like Zephyr Boots.
I do like Zephyr Boots a lot.
I like this card too.
It draws you cards.
1 mana to cast, 2 to equip. Equipped creature gains flying, and then whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card and discard a card.
Yeah, I do think Shadowspear's, I mean, the counterpoint is just that there's so many other equipment that do a lot of similar things.
Right.
So unless your deck really needs a Shadowspear, or you're constantly dealing with hexproof and indestructible problems, I think you can be fine with any number of these alternatives.
I agree. I think you just need to look at Shadowspear and decide what you liked about Shadowspear, because it does a lot of things really well in one card. That's why it's expensive. But if you're interested in the lifelink, there's comps. If you're interested in the evasion, there's comps. And it is not necessarily $35.
There will be a Theros set that puts both Shadowspear and Nykthos on the reprint block. That would be sweet.
Someday.
Yeah, so is it worth it? I would say not right now.
I don't think so.
It's definitely overpriced. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think a reprint will really flatten this price. Up next, we are talking about one of the stapliest green staples. It's Heroic Intervention.
Yay! This card has seen a ton of reprints, actually.
Yep.
Every single Universes Beyond set has like thrown their own version of Heroic Intervention in it because there's a hero and they're intervening at some point in the story.
It's very easy to reskin,
Yeah.
but it is still sitting at $14, which can look pretty spendy when you're just looking at a protection spell.
Yeah, it's gone up and down a bunch, but there's a lot of other ways to do this, actually. And I think they're pretty good.
Yeah.
The hexproof thing, it's usually you're only using it to protect one thing.
Right.
And there's a lot of ways to do that in green. But the indestructible for the entire board is what's the most relevant from Heroic Intervention I found.
Right. I think if you're leaning on the, like, look, I've got one really important piece. I need to protect my commander, or I need to, like, defend one of my, like, propagandas or something like that.
Yeah.
There's definitely alternatives in green. Heroic Intervention will defend your whole board, of course. But if you want to protect your entire board from regular wrath, something like Rapid Vigor gets you pretty close.
Yeah, I like that.
It regenerates each creature you control, so
Puts a shield on them and they get tapped when they would
Right.
die otherwise.
right. So it does like sort of gets around Shadowspear.
Yeah, good
First
point.
of all,
Gotcha.
huge.
Yeah.
But it will get stopped by certain wraths just kind of randomly, like Wrath of God.
Or exiling effects.
Or exiling effects, bounce effects. But,
Oh yeah, Wrath
but,
of God. Creatures
yeah.
can be regenerated. Funny.
But Heroic Intervention would be got by like a farewell or a bounce effect
Sure.
also. So Rapid Vigor does a decent approximation for like $2.
Yeah. Smuggler's Surprise. I'm surprised this is up to like $9 now, but this is from Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
I love this card.
It's super good. It's modal. It's a spree, so you can choose one or more additional costs. And one of them is just one of the green creatures you control power 4 or greater gain hexproof and indestructible. So in the right deck, this is real nice.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to protect like your big board so you can swing
Yeah.
out for one more turn. That's kind of where Heroic Intervention shines. And Smuggler's Surprise has some additional utility on top of it.
Yeah,
So,
just throwing big stuff on the board.
and it's, it's $5 less. It's not a ton less, but I
Yeah.
think that's a decent comp.
I think if you're only looking to protect one thing, and occasionally you have like a bigger board, so you're more Voltron-y, or you just have that commander that everyone thinks is the problem, then your single protection spells. There's a lot of them out there. I like that you put Collective Resistance on here.
I love this card.
This card is sick because it's just an instant. You can escalate so you pay green for each mode beyond the first, but you can destroy an artifact, destroy an enchantment, or give a creature hexproof and indestructible.
So 2
So.
mana, kill an artifact or enchantment. That's on rate. And then 3
3
mana, give something hexproof and kill your thing. So it's fizzle your spell, keep my thing, kill
Kill your
yours.
thing. Yeah, 3 for 1.
4 mana, you could kill 2
Two
things.
things? Whoa.
That's a lot of bang for your buck on one little spell.
Yeah.
But even like, I run Snakeskin Veil in a couple of decks where it's just like, no, you can't. Like, I need to protect my commander. I spent a lot of mana on it.
Yeah, your Lux bounty.
Yeah, Sebsunen.
Sebsunen for sure. Overprotect, also just a sick card. That card's so cool.
Get them.
Yeah, so is Heroic Intervention worth it? I'd still say yes, but man, if this doesn't get reprinted in the next year, I would be very surprised. And when this was getting reprinted into the ground, it got the price really dumped on it.
It got all the way down to like $6. I don't know if I would buy it as a single. I feel like Heroic Interventions happen to you, like like as,
oh look, I got a Heroic Intervention.
yeah, like as you buy precons or as
Yeah.
you buy, like they've reprinted so often that I don't know if I'd go out and like buy a bunch of Heroic Interventions
Yeah,
unless
yeah.
they're sitting at a really low price.
Would you look at that? A hero has intervened its way into my collection. All right, next up we have an absurdly spendy one, but like one of I'd say the most classic sort of like powerful things you can do in Magic. It's token doublers.
We're specifically going to talk about the white ones. We talked about the green ones in the last time we did a similar episode to this, where we talk about staples that aren't worth it. We talked about Doubling Season and Parallel
worth
Lives
it.
and that kind of thing. They're not. And honestly, I have similar opinion when it comes to the white ones. Anointed Procession sitting at a whopping $70.
Yeah, just absurd. Old
Mondrake-
card never been printed.
And like
reprinted.
they have so many different versions of this, and all of them are over $40.
Yeah.
Like Mondrake is $55, O'Hare Talk is $43.
Oh my gosh.
Elspeth Stormslayer, which was just printed, is already at $35.
And it will climb as the set gets older, right?
Yeah. I mean, these are powerful and they're popular effects, which is what makes them expensive. But if you think about what they do, is all they do is say, you made tokens, now making tokens is
More.
better.
Yeah.
Right? we're just improving the fact that you made some amount of tokens, and there are a million ways to improve on the fact that you have creatures.
Yeah, exactly.
And most of them do not cost you $40.
Yeah, there's a lot of alternatives here. You can just change what the tokens are into angels with Divine Visitation. You can just do other things that don't care about doubling.
Yeah, I mean,
Also, it's overkill too.
Like
right?
Renewed Solidarity is a new one that says like if you've made tokens of one type, you make even more on end step, and that one's only $7. Like that's a very close approximation
Very
of
close,
Anointed
yeah.
Procession. Stridehanger Automaton says whenever you make an artifact token, you make a Thopter as well. So that's specifically if you're doing like a treasure and clue thing, but that gives you a pretty good like
Academy Manufactor.
it makes a bunch of stuff, and that's like a $3 to $5 card. It might be more than that right now.
It's interesting that white, which is kind of the least played color in Commander, has constant problems with what feel like win con type things. We say this with the white win cons, and now
Very
token
expensive.
doubles are kind of like a win con in white token decks as well. So it's interesting that both of these areas are expensive because I don't actually see too much of these decks these days.
Yeah, I mean, you could just play something like Will of the Mardu is a new one that says like, hey, you make tokens equal to the number of tokens one player has.
Right.
That just doubles your board. That does what these say. It only does it one time, but at the end of the day, how many times is Anointed Procession actually helping you?
Yeah.
So I just think like if you're worried about buying one of these cards, I would just buy a card that makes a bunch of tokens because it does it.
Yeah, I do find that
Then you
token
have all the
doublers
tokens.
are kind of overkill a lot of times too. It's
Yeah.
definitely a win more feeling, even though it does get you to the win. It's almost obscene how much further it gets you into the win. So you can probably figure out ways to do it without having to put a $70 buy into an Anointed Procession.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think token doublers are not worth it. There's a million ways to take advantage of having tokens. I would buy a card that actually does something.
But when does the token quadrupler enter the battlefield?
That I'll spend $1,000 on.
It'll happen. It'll happen sometime, I bet.
Like, I get it's fun. I know, and it is good, but it's expensive.
It's expensive,
It's
right?
not
Not
worth
worth
that.
it.
It's not worth it.
Let's talk about another card that I think is absolutely not worth it.
It is not worth it.
It's the Great Henge, the Party Tree. Doesn't matter how many giant trees are in Universes Beyond. They can't reprint this thing enough for it to go down.
It is $80.
And it is so not worth it. But it is so powerful, but
Yes.
also so not worth it.
$80 is bananas. That's ridiculous for a like perfectly
$80. How much could a banana cost, Michael?
It's like, if you compare it to our other draw engines, it's very similar.
Very similar.
It's a little bit more expensive. It gives you mana back. Like, we understand the Great Henge is the best one. I get it.
Yeah, it's a mana rock. Sometimes it just costs green. It gives
It
you
gains
life.
you life, yes.
It's one counters, draw cards. Amazing.
It's very good. Is it $80? Like, Guardian
No.
Project is like, what, 14?
Yeah, Beast Whisperer is under $5 right now. Garrick's Uprising in the right deck does what the Great Henge does, but, you know.
For 75 cents.
Yeah. Tribute to the World Tree, I really like this one.
This one's great.
Yeah, amazing card.
Does the
but
counters and does draw, depending on what you put into play. It
Yeah.
is sitting at $15. That's one of the more expensive ones like Guardian Project, but it is still cheaper than $80.
yeah, it would be a different story if the Great Henge was the only card in green that did what it did. The only reason it is so much is because of the fact that it can cost just green, and that it takes a bunch of cards and slams them into one.
Yes.
So if you want all three of the effects on the card, great, Great Henge is there. If you just want two of the effects on the card, there's some alternatives. If you just want one of the effects on the card, also a bunch of alternatives.
You're right. It is really good. And if you have one, great. But spending $80 on this card, I just don't. I would rather buy 4 Fetchlands.
Yeah.
For
I also think
for sure buy 4 Fetchlands.
Yeah, exactly. I also think a lot of players just may also think that, oh, I'm just going to auto slam the Great Henge in my deck, but it's like, actually, no, you rarely get creatures over 4 or 5 power in your deck, so it's not actually that good in your deck.
It's more of a build around than it looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the Great Henge in one deck, and it is my deck designed to cast 6 mana, 6/6s.
Yeah.
And it's because I opened one in a pack. That's where it came from.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I wish I opened a Party Tree because I like that version a lot.
It's really cute.
Eh.
All right.
Okay.
You don't need a Great Henge.
That was an easy one.
Whoop.
And man, when they reprint it, I hope that price. Ta-doom!
It's ridiculous.
Okay, this is also a card that I think people overvalue and overrate. It's the Ozolith, which is sitting at a whopping $40.
Ugh.
So 2 Ozoliths is 1 Great Henge, which is kind of strange.
So,
So-
imagine what the Great Ozolith would cost.
So on the surface, the Great Ozolith, yeah, it costs 8 mana, but is reduced by how many counters you have on creatures. Yeah.
So it's free.
So whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, you put those counters on the Ozolith, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature.
Okay. So this, in a +1/+1 counter deck, this protects your, like, all of the time and effort you've invested in getting all those +1/+1 counters onto the board.
Yay.
And it centralizes it into this little artifact that is cheap and easy to tutor for.
Yep.
And it is good. And it will protect and save all of your +1/+1 counters. But the thing about this card is it says, okay, if you've already done the thing and then something went wrong, you're not that blown
bad.
out.
Yeah, and then you got to move all the things onto something else.
And
all
now,
of the things.
Yeah, which is, so it's just not as good in as many situations as you'd think.
Yeah. I've actually seen this card do nothing more than something in games. And then in the games where it does threaten to do something, it gets taken care of. And all of a sudden it's like, oh man, well, maybe I just should have played another creature.
Another creature that comes in with counters.
And has an ETB ability. It doesn't have to, right? I think if you're like a deck that's got a lot of tricksy stuff, a lot of sacrificing and moving around like Rayhan,
like
Last of the
modular
Abzan,
or
modular,
Rayhan,
yeah. Then the Ozolith feels a little bit cooler and it takes all the counters and moves them all off at once. So it doesn't even give you a little bit of flexibility there. So that can lead to blowouts as well. It's very telegraphed what's happening and where it's going.
The Ozolith is cool, and I get why people like it, but I think a Heroic Intervention is a better place to put money, even though we said, like, you probably don't need to buy one, because it protects your board. And you still have your board after that. Ozolith says, oh, you still lose your board, but when you have a board again, it's going to be big.
It's going to be sick. Yeah, I've seen Ozolith on empty boards with no counters on it, and it's a sad, sad little artifact.
Yeah. I put it in my Knight of Weeks deck to save Weeks
The
counters,
Weeks counters,
because they're so precious.
They're so hard to get rid of. Yeah,
so
get to build back up. Yeah.
And that is the only deck I've ever put the Ozolith into.
Yeah, I think it's, again, one of those cards that looks really fun and really cool when you look at it at first glance, and that adds to the price and demand for it, but it actually doesn't play quite as well. You do need to put a little bit more work into the deck to make it really do the thing.
Snakeskin Veil.
Snakeskin Veil. Yeah. How many times would you rather just save the creature that's trying to get killed and buff it up instead of, okay, I'm going to move the things on the Ozolith and then I'm going to find something else to move it onto? Yeah. Right? I think if you have effects that care about stuff getting moved onto it or stuff that's constantly trying to move stuff on and off or sacrifice, then the Ozolith makes more sense, but not $40 sense.
Right. $40 is too much for this effect. Hopefully we'll see. This is also from Theros, right?
Yeah.
No, this is from Ikoria. This is from
Ikoria.
It was around the same time.
It makes sense, not dollars, guys.
All right. Up next, beloved card in the Command Zone office today. Now we are going to evaluate
Sword of Feast and Famine.
Well, it better be a famine or a feast, excuse me, because it's $28.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for a 3-drop artifact that costs you to equip. Can sometimes do so much work, it's absurd, and turns like that turn 4, turn 5 into like a turn 8, turn 9 type level of turn. But it is pretty expensive. And there are a lot of actually ways to do this. So just untapping your stuff.
Yeah, this is interesting because I was like, all right, Sword of Feast and Famine untaps your mana is like the functional thing. You have to have a creature, you have to hit, and it protects the creature it's equipped to.
It's got protection from a lot of the big colors in Magic and Commander, but you also have to have a lot of lands and not just mana rocks in play for it to really be good.
That's true. So I was like, okay, there's plenty of comps in green and blue in terms of just untapping your mana resources. Bear Umbra is a nice one. It's sitting at $10, so it's like a third the price of the Sword of Feast and Famine. This is whenever a enchanted creature attacks, untap all lands you control, and it gives it Umbra armor.
Doesn't have to deal combat damage to the player. It can just untap it when it attacks, which is nice.
Yeah. Still gets that +2/+2 buff. Yeah. It does give it some amount of protection and only has to attack.
There's this old enchantment called Nature's Will that does the same thing. It's just whenever one more creature you control deal combat damage to a player, you tap all lands they control and untap all lands you control. Sick. Got him.
This
Which is
card
nice.
used to be so expensive. This used to be like $20, $40 card, and
Yeah.
then they reprinted it. It was in the Enchanting Tales sheet, I think, and now it's $3.50.
It's almost better than Sword of the Feast of Famine in a lot of cases, especially if you have just flyers that can get in.
You
or
get
like
multiple
little,
triggers on
Yeah,
it.
little unblockable dudes. Yeah.
Nature's Will is great, and it definitely is a good approximation for what a Sword of Feast and Famine would do.
It's because it says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player.
Right.
So Rachel was talking about hitting multiple players gives you multiple triggers.
Right.
That's the nuance.
Yes.
Okay.
3
Let's move on.
players, 3 triggers.
3 triggers, yeah.
Blue also has good ways to untap. Reset used to be a very expensive card, but caught a reprint in Mystery Booster 2, and Reset is all the way down to like $6 or something.
And it looks really cool in the reprint.
It looks
version,
really
too.
cool
Yeah.
in the reprint. Yeah, Reset's $6. Wilderness Reclamation 75 cents. All of these are green and blue is the thing. And I couldn't really find good examples that untap lands in other colors. So
Yeah.
if you really want to untap all your lands in black or in white, then maybe it is worth investing in a Sword of Feast and Famine. But if you are in green or you are in blue, there are definitely cheaper alts that you can put into your deck.
Yeah, I love Wilderness Reclamation. I think, too, it's such a magnet for removal, and getting blown out by trying to equip something on a creature is awful. A lot of times I just find that, like, you know, every time, like, Josh plays a Wilderness Reclamation, I'm like, oh my gosh, we are dead.
Right.
I had a chance if he tried to throw down a sword and equip it and all that. But yeah, I think like if your deck is super mana hungry or has big mana, it's going to ramp out a ton of lands, then great. This card is definitely probably worth it. Or an equipment deck where you get the equip cost for its reduced price. But I think that extra synergy does need to be there.
Yeah, it needs to be an equipment deck. It needs to actually make use of its mana very well for you to actually want to invest in a Sword of Feast and Famine.
At sorcery speed too, right? Otherwise, Wilderness Reclamation looks just as good.
Right.
And is much safer from removal.
Yeah, so I think Sword of Feast and Famine is like a sometimes type of deck, but $28 is a lot, and honestly, I don't play it that much.
Yeah, but if it is in the deck that it does shine and does really well, it's going to be one of your favorite cards to play, for sure.
All right.
Sure.
Up next, speaking of colorless staples, we're talking about the big walking chair themselves. It's Roaming Throne.
Yeah, the animation that we made for this is one of the coolest animations we've ever done for game nights, and it's so sad because I hate this card. I genuinely dislike this card. I don't like that it exists. I hate that it costs a lot. I hate that what it does to games when it comes down. It just doesn't feel like fun.
It's a $40 card.
It's boring.
That doubles the triggers of a chosen creature type. So usually it's copying the triggers from your commander, but it could be in a typo strategy where it doubles the triggers from all of your
All
creatures.
stuff, yeah.
In either of those cases, it is exceptionally powerful. It has ward that protects itself. It's colorless, so it goes in a ton of decks.
Yeah. The ward is, I think, the most annoying part of it, and that it's colorless. Because I do love Spark Double. I really love Irenicus' Vile Duplication, but that to me is more fun because you're making just one copy of your commander, and it doesn't have that additional, every single wizard now does 2x the thing, right?
Roaming Throne is extremely powerful. It goes in a lot of decks. It's great with a ton of commanders, and there really is no approximation for this. You could, of course, run token doublers if you're doubling the token triggers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to double triggers, so you could certainly shop around to see if there's a way to, like, if your commander's a wizard, it's much easier to double wizard abilities because there's Harmonic Prodigy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think if you're looking in one place to invest your mana, Roaming Throne does go in a lot of decks. On the other hand, boo.
Yeah, boo, it's boring.
It's boring.
It's boring, but it's good. And
It's really good.
I think a lot of the cards that players have the most issue with are cards that are good but boring. Like, I think that's kind of the Cyclonic Rift problem. It's just like, it's good, but it's Cyclonic Rift. Okay, got it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
At the very least, Roaming Throne is very much a front foot type card. You're playing this to advance and really accelerate what you're doing. So I think if you're looking to give that extra punch.
Annie Joins Up is another good approximation, but that is,
Yeah.
of course, in red and green and white. Not a lot of ways to imitate a Roaming Throne. I think if you're looking for a place to invest your money, Roaming Throne is a perfectly good place to do it, especially if you're really into typo strategies, where Roaming Throne is even better.
And it's interesting because I would say that this is a very reprintable type card, but the fact that it has Ward 2 on it and Wizards has moved away from printing higher ward costs on stuff makes me also think that maybe they actually don't want to reprint this too much either. So it's tough to know if it's going to just see a reprint somewhere, be on the bonus sheet or whatever. But it is still probably worth it for as much moaning and whining that I've been doing about it.
Yeah, I think $40 is where it will always sort of drift back to.
Yeah. I could see it going down to like a 25-ish thing, and then it's going to whoop right back.
Okay. So the rest of the cards that we're going to talk about in this episode will likely be power outliers in the average commander playgroups. So I wanted to talk about that before we get into them. So these are cards that are like, yes, they are exceptionally powerful, but there's a lot of playgroups where if you play them, they're sort of like, why would you... Like, they're inappropriate for the average power level of your group. So it may not be...
sad.
It may not be worth you buying because you're like, oh, I spent, $60 on this card, and yeah, it was really good, but now my playgroup doesn't want to play against it, and I have this card I can't play.
Yeah, and every time this deck comes up, they just mention that thing that happened that one time.
Yeah.
That's often enough to get people to remove cards from the deck. And the first one is one of those cards. I saw this in a video recently, played by someone that I would be like, yep, you're the kind of person that plays Mana Drain. And I was like, I don't want to play against them if they're going to play this.
Mana Drain is real, man. Mana Drain's sitting at $50 right now, which is honestly kind of okay for Mana Drain. It was at $100 for a long time.
Yeah, and this card is absurdly powerful, and I do play it in a couple of my decks because I have 8 drops, 9 drops. I want to power out with this thing.
So Mana Drain says, counter target spell at the beginning of your next main phase. Add an amount of colorless mana equal to that spell's mana value. Yes. This is a ritual and a counter spell. It is busted.
It just takes counter spell and adds amazing text to it.
Like an unbelievable, adds Jessica's will to it.
Here's the thing. If Mana Drain just gets you 2 extra mana, it's still pretty darn good.
Mana Drain is an exceptional magic card. But,
yeah.
If you're looking for counter spells, there's counterspell, there's delay, there's 1,000 other things that you can do that have that same approximation. And if you're looking for a burst of mana, you can play a lot of the untap effects that we were talking about earlier. Turnabout, Dramatic Reversal are all in blue, all at instant speed, and all less than $10. But if you want to play Mana Drain, because Mana Drain is super fun and really sick.
Yeah, boy, when you hit something dope with Mana Drain and then power out something cooler with it, it's like, boy, I can't believe a counterspell did that.
I cannot in good conscience tell you that Mana Drain is not worth the money because when you cast it, it's freaking so fun.
Yeah.
But if you're not in the playgroup where there's like Mana Drains running around, it is going to be a feel bad.
Or Mana Drain level threats.
Right.
Like you got to have extra counterspell type stuff.
It surges you into the lead because you have like set somebody back and pushed yourself forward. It is fast mana in a lot of different ways. It will lead to you countering somebody's spell that you don't really care about just because it's high mana value.
Yeah, oh my gosh. When the table goes around and it's that last player, and then let's say they're a newer player and they play I'm going to play my 5-drop, and you're like, well, I couldn't Mana Drain anything else, but it's going to be you.
Sorry. Bam, and I cast a 10-drop.
Yeah.
It is too powerful for a lot of playgroups, in my opinion. I don't really run Mana Drain unless my deck is high end of 3 or a 4 in terms of the bracket system. So
I'll put it this way. I didn't have Mana Drain in the deck, and then I was going to go play Commander at home against Brian Kibler, one of his powerful decks, and then put Mana Drain in my deck. Yeah. Because you know that dude slamming down a 7-drop that's in green that's going to ruin your day, right?
So I think Mana Drain, yes, if it's going to be appropriate for your playgroup. Otherwise, probably not.
It is cool to have cards like this in your collection, though, where it's like, hey, I'm looking to take this deck to the next level. And Mana Drain is just one of those really fun ones to put in there, knowing that, like, hey, now this thing is cooking.
Mana Drain's fun.
Yeah.
Up next, Esper Sentinel.
Oh my gosh. $43 plus, maybe more by the time this thing comes out.
It's ridiculous. No, there is no card draw engine in white that is as good as Esper Sentinel. Certainly not one that is that efficient. Certainly not one that doesn't need any synergy to be busted.
Did Josh and I complain too hard about white not having card advantage, and then they were like, all right, well, here's Esper Sentinel.
I don't...
Because this came after years of us talking on the podcast. And people just, not just us, right? People being like, white is not keeping up.
Right.
And then they created Archivist of Ogma, and there's another one white one that does a similar thing.
That one gets lands.
Yeah, they get lands.
You're talking about the gnome?
Yeah, Terramancer.
Yeah, he gets lands.
But Esper Sentinel is just, it's got artifact synergies. It can randomly buff its power and then never get paid
Equipment
for.
Synergy, yeah.
It's White's Rhystic Study.
White's Mystic Remora, sort of. It's very good. Yeah.
It's very good. It's $43 good, I guess.
Yeah,
it can run away with games.
I did want to say that, like, I think a lot of people look at Esper Sentinel and they're like, well, I'm in white and I need to draw cards, and the only way to draw what cards in white is Esper Sentinel.
Yeah,
and that
Rachel
is,
Week said so.
I said so. You can quote that. But that's not true. There's a million other things that you can do other than Esper Sentinel. I really don't play Esper Sentinel in most of my white decks because it's just not really a card I like having on the battlefield all that much.
Yeah.
Like Archivist of Ogma will draw you cards. I like Mask of Memory a lot. It fits with how I play white. Goes on like the 2-mana 2/1 flyers that can hit.
Welcoming Vampire, amazing card.
Yep. Whenever you cast little things enter, you draw cards. Takesha's Welcome. If you're
Wedding Ring.
Like there's a million ways to draw cards in white these days. Honestly, I for a long time was like Smuggler's Share is unplayable.
Oh, right. Yeah.
This is the 3-mana enchantment that says draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn, then create a treasure token for each opponent who had 2 or more lands enter the battlefield under your control this turn.
At
But
the beginning of each end step, yeah.
yes, so you can draw up to 1 card a turn. For a
it's got
long time it
raccoons
was.
on
I had it in play. It didn't do anything. I didn't like it. And I was like, I'm taking this out of all my decks. And then I played against it recently and it was incredible. I was like, oh my God, that was the card we thought it was.
It's like when you're like, Mangara's not going to draw me that many cards, right? Mangara did.
yeah, he does. So I think like if you're in a playgroup that builds pretty good decks and has pretty consistent draw engines, Smuggler's Share is one that I would look at. Decks are getting better. Players are drawing more cards.
Yeah.
That means Smuggler's Share is getting better.
I will also say that Esper Sentinel, in certain groups, they just have to pay the 1. And it becomes like, if you're in a playgroup that knows how to play around Rhystic Study gets very bad very quickly. So Esper Sentinel is still playable around. People just often choose not to because either, I've had it happen too where it's like, oh, you're mono white, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're struggling already.
You're
Sorry.
fine.
Yeah.
And then you just get buried in card advantage.
Yeah. Or it's like Rachel, like, wait, should not give her that card.
Don't give me cards. I'll use them.
Yeah.
Like even the Monarch is a good card draw engine in white. You're good at taking it. You're good at holding it. You don't need an Esper Sentinel.
Yeah. But if you do happen to have one, boy, it's a good card.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I think more than even turn 1 Soul Ring, people groan at turn 1 Esper Sentinel.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So I guess what's the final recommendation for Esper Sentinel?
If you are in, again, the same mana drain type thing, you're ramping into doing more competitive stuff, you're willing to put the money in for the pieces that will really overperform, Esper Sentinel is there. Much better than Anointed Procession.
But if you're just looking to draw cards in white, shop around.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Up next, everything we're going to talk about from here on out are game changers.
GC, baby.
So keep that in mind. If you're not playing at bracket 3 or higher, then don't buy these.
Yeah.
You don't want them. Your playgroup doesn't expect them. You don't need them. Starting with Cyclonic Rift.
At what, $48.
Oh my God.
What?
Yeah.
I remember this used to be $5, $3.
Yeah, there's a lot more Commander
Crazy.
players these days.
Yeah.
And you walk to the game store uphill both ways, Grandpa.
Yeah, this is 6 in the blue to overload. Return all non-land permanents you don't control to their owner's hands. And I've seen very often now just played as 1 in the blue, bounce something at instant speed. So it is extremely powerful. Can completely reset the game and blow up their boards. Tokens get vanished and put you into a winning position because you untap and you go.
Yeah, I mean, this is an instant, like, Cyclonic Rift is an instant speed, one-sided board wipe that hits every permanent type other than lands and gets around indestructible.
Yeah.
They do not print board wipes like this anymore, and they don't do it for a reason. There's comps, I wrote them down, but they're not Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah, this was in an era where when they made the overload mechanic, Commander just wasn't that popular. And as a result, they didn't say target opponent. They just say, everything you don't control, because they're assuming a 1v1 format.
Right.
And as a result, this thing slipped through the cracks and has become one of the biggest threats and crazy cards in Commander.
Right. Again, if you're playing bracket 3 or 4, yes, Cyclonic Rift, great.
Yes.
It is. You can play River's Rebuke. I love playing River's Rebuke.
Yeah, especially when you play against your Josh Lee Quais, because everyone's like, yeah, you did it! You get a turn of immunity! And I'm like, that's better than Cyclonic Rift. Shoot!
River's Rebuke feels more rude than Cyclonic Rift.
Oh,
because
totally.
It says return all non-land permanents
target player. And it's sorcery speed. So it's like, boom, this is all I'm doing this turn.
It's 6 mana, you lose the game.
Yeah.
Is what it
Who wants to, was it Hate Josh Club or whatever?
Yeah. Usually it's bounce all their things, swing and kill them, is what River's Rebuke says. And it does a decent approximation of like what an aggressively cast Cyclonic Rift would do, but you still have 2 other opponents that have their whole board.
I like desynchronization a lot. I haven't seen this play that much. It's from the Assassin's Creed set. It's 2 blue for an instant and says return each non-land permanent that's not historic to its owner's hand. So not a huge blowout for your artifacts and your legendary creatures, but it can get rid of all of their utility enchantments and stuff, and it's pretty cheap, 4 mana.
This is a good example of like how you can use synergy to turn board wipes into one-sided board wipes.
Yeah.
Because you'll keep your artifacts and your legends, but everybody else will lose. Like, they'll keep their commander, they'll lose a lot of pieces in the meantime.
Yeah.
Because they'll keep their sagas.
Sweet.
Didn't really think about that. So
Raise the Palisades similar. This is just for creature types,
the other one I wanted to talk about that I definitely didn't put on here is the 5 mana instant that bounces all tokens or all non-tokens.
Oh, yeah.
Perplexing Test.
Oh, yeah. That's a fun one.
That's a great one. I mean, if you have a ton of tokens, you can bounce all of your opponent's boards as instant speed, untap, replay your commander, and attack for the win.
Yeah.
And that sort of feels like a Cyclonic Rift. Again, it's synergy based, but it has the same kind of end game Cyclonic Rift effect.
Yeah, and if you're not looking to bounce, there's also just tons of board wipes that can be one-sided board wipes that feel very similar to what Cyc Rift does. So I think if you're okay with those alternatives, cool. But if you just want the one that is proven to be the best and the strongest and the most powerful, Cyc Rift is definitely that one.
And it is the best.
Yeah. But if you're holding up 7 mana at instant speed, a lot of people will be able to sniff it out too. It's a little worse.
It is the best by far. Again, 48 is a lot. I think I would sit on it. I think I would wait for Cyclonic Rift to come back down. Usually when it gets reprinted, it comes down to about 2025.
And if you're a deck builder too, you're going to have more fun when they reprint that Simone's Hypothesis version that makes you go like, cool, that's the one that actually works better in my deck, and I don't need to play a game changer to do so.
Yeah. So I think hang out for Cyclonic Rift. If you really want Cyclonic Rift, if you really want the best, it is the best. And there's no argument there.
It's the best around. Okay, this one is also
of
the best. That's why it's a game changer. It is Teferi's Protection.
Yep, sitting at $50 right now. Teferi's Protection says it's the white instant speed extra turn spell.
3 mana, take that. Sorry, you were trying to kill me? This is like concession at instant speed type power, right?
I mean, this says whatever you were doing, you don't.
Yeah, and you just wasted your whole turn doing it to me.
Yeah.
And now you're open. Sorry.
Yeah, I've seen Teferi's Protection win more games than perhaps any individual card in Commander.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking about like they cast that one spell and it won them the game on the spot, I think this is the kind of card that says, oh, you used all of your resources because you thought you could kill me this turn.
Yeah.
You can't.
Both save them on the spot and sometimes like just completely save the player doing it, right? Like not just I'm going to win the game, but like there's no other way for me to survive.
Right.
And this is the only thing that gives me a shot.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of times in games where you're like, well, I can win right now unless they have Teferi's Protection. And they do, and you're like, no!
How do I attack half my creatures now because they're going to come back and I'll be open? Yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into whether or not they have Tef Pro.
And there's a lot of alts-ish. Flare of Fortitude is like kind of close. Your board gets hexproof and indestructible, and your life total can't change.
Yeah.
So that gives you some amount of protection, but it doesn't protect you from like mill wins, or like it doesn't guarantee that you untap. It doesn't save your board from bounce wipes or exile wipes.
Maybe Angel's Grace will come back into fashion.
I mean, Angel's Grace is like pretty close.
Split Second is sweet.
It's so sweet.
Yeah.
I don't have Angel's Grace in a deck, and I should, because it's one of those things that they cast and you're like, what?
Yeah, excuse
Which
me.
I love playing
What do you mean
those.
I can't do anything else? And then Clever Concealment just saw a reprint with that cool Final Fantasy art, which
that was a
allows
good
you to phase out cards. And there's a couple cards that do similar things in blue as well. It's not slip out the back, but there's like similar
March
phase
of
out.
Swirling Mist.
Yeah, March of
will phase
Swirling
out your
Mist.
board and that kind of thing. But in terms of just like saving your life and protecting your board and guaranteeing you untap and like saving you from just about anything, it's hard to get better than Teferi's Protection. Everybody lives is kind of close, but the thing about Teferi's Protection that's good is like a person will play a Crater Hoof, attack everybody for lethal, and you're the only one who survives.
Yeah.
And Everyone Lives says, actually, everybody gets another turn, and now we are still in this weird standoff. I think if you're talking about like where should I put my money, where do I want to like invest in a powerful card for one of my decks, Teferi's Protection is it is that good.
It's also one of those cards that if your deck is just a definitively lower power level than everything else at the pod, this actually brings it much closer to them based on just how swingy it can be. Like a lot of times in the old system, a 7 couldn't mess with a 9, but this makes a 5 able to mess with an 8. You know, like it allows the deck that maybe doesn't have the power to do something to pull something sneaky off and really get someone.
Yeah. With Teferi's Protection, if you have it in your hand and you are in the late game, and by late game I mean turn 6 and later,
Yeah.
you should probably have mana open to cast Teferi's Protection. Like you should just do it, have that available to you. All right, one more. We're going to talk about the final game changer. I don't think either of us really think this should be a game changer, but here it is at $55. It's Field of the Dead.
Definitely changes games when it does.
Yeah.
But I've also seen this do a fat load of nothing. This is a $55 card.
It's ridiculous.
Comes in taps, adds colorless, and if you happen to have 7 or more lands with different names, including Field of the Dead, you begin to make zombie tokens with landfall triggers.
So Field of the Dead is interesting. There's no true replacement. There's not a land that makes a ton of bodies. Like this is unique.
There's enchantments that do it with landfall, tons of those, but Field of the Dead is just a land that does it. So it kind of makes it similar to like the Boseijus and the MDFCs that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, and that does make it exceptionally powerful and fairly free in a lot of decks.
Crop rotation.
But I don't think I would throw a Field of the Dead into just any deck.
No.
It is a card I still would want to build around. It's a little bit more narrow than it looks. And if you've got a lands deck that you're trying to juice up and to have like the ultimate scapeshift target, then yeah, Field of the Dead is definitely worth it. If you don't buy it. $55 is ridiculous for this card.
Absolutely ridiculous. And I think it also suffers from the same thing where people go like, oh, this is just good. I should put this in this deck. And then they never actually get to 7 or more different land names because they haven't built around it.
Right.
So it also necessitates that your deck is kind of expensive because it has all the different lands it can play, right? Like if you're running Field of the Dead in decks that have barely any basics in them because you want to make sure that when it lands, it's starting to make zombies.
Or they've split their basics into half snow lands.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm down. But yeah, this is not worth the price tag. I don't even think it's a game changer. And it is good when it is good and it's great when it's great. But otherwise, I don't actually think it's that useful.
Yeah.
It's no Esper Sentinel, that's for sure, right? This costs more than Esper Sentinel. Think about that.
It's like significantly more, like $10 more.
Yeah.
I think if you have the one deck that'll really benefit from it, sure, maybe it's worth like you've got your birthday money and you want to buy something cool. It will be cool in that deck.
You get money for your birthday?
Yeah.
Oh man, I was just hoping my parents would just tell me I did a good job at anything.
That's worth $55 to me.
And then they give me a Field of the Dead.
We found this under your bed. You're like, what?
Yeah, the Tooth Fairy, the zombie fairy.
But even then, if you've got a deck where it's perfect, I think I'd probably hold off for a reprint. 55 is that's too much.
This was only an M20, which is a core set. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, they reprinted it in like fancy versions. There's a couple of fancy versions of it, but that doesn't bring down the base price.
Yeah. This will for sure, I think, see some kind of reprint eventually because they've given Teferi's Protection a couple of good reprints, Cyclonic Rift, right? They know that the game changers are powerful and alluring reasons why people want to play the game. And popular, so yeah, this will see a reprint at some point.
All right. The final question I want to talk about is what does money buy and what should we expect when we're investing in a Magic card? You know what I mean?
Happiness.
Joy. Love.
Consistency.
Yeah.
A lot of times the lower the mana value, the higher the price. It's almost an inverse curve right there.
Yeah, as long as it's good.
Yeah, as long as it's good. Yeah.
There's a lot of really cheap 1 mana 1/1s, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think consistency is a big thing. Like it always works. It works in a lot of decks. Efficiency, if it's cheap, and easy to cast, especially something like Shadowspear where you're like, it's 1 mana and it does a ton of things that a lot of equipment do for more expensive.
Boseiju,
yeah. Free spells are often more expensive.
Free spells, yeah.
Honestly, I think efficiency is a little overrated in Commander. There's a lot of really powerful cards that are modal that you can sneak into those spots and sort of balance the power in a different way that are much less expensive. Whereas in formats like Modern, efficiency, you just need it to be efficient. Otherwise, it's unplayable.
Yeah.
So,
and flexibility.
Yeah.
Can it do a lot of different things? Is it good when you're ahead, when you're behind, when you're at parity? Those sorts of cards when you look at it in your hand, it's like, this is just powerful. This is useful and powerful.
It's useful now. It's useful later.
I'm really picking the exact right spot to use it.
Like Teferi's Protection, we said it does all of these things, but here's a bunch of cards that do sort of half of what it does.
Yeah.
That flexibility is what makes it so powerful.
We've also seen that money can buy scarcity. So in examples where it just hasn't been reprinted a lot, you're actually paying, there is a certain amount of the price, and it's kind of up to you to sort of understand what that is. Like, let's say a card costs $50, but it's because it hasn't been reprinted in a long time.
Nykthos,
Yeah. How much of that is the fact that it's just scarce as opposed to the power level of the card itself? Right.
And I wanted to say that you really don't need money to buy synergy or even necessarily power.
This is the most important point of the episode, I think.
Yeah, like if you're worried that your power level is too low and you've got a bunch of money and you just want to throw it at something, buying one staple isn't necessarily going to improve your deck's power level overall.
Yeah.
You can buy 10 really good cards that'll tighten up the synergy screws on your deck and make your cards work better together, which raises the power level of your entire deck rather than having one power outlier in 100 cards.
Yeah, and you may never draw that card too, right? Think about it that way.
And the more narrow, there's been a trend in card design lately where they'll make cards that are very powerful for very specific strategies. Look for those because those are going to be cheap and really good for your deck. And you won't end up like, you don't spend money on a card that goes in every deck, but if you're trying to just improve one deck, that's a much better way to spend money than just dumping it into an Esper Sentinel.
Yeah, that's like the bounce on non-token or token modal spell, right?
Yeah,
or
that's
your
like,
Crux of Fates.
Exactly.
Kills only dragons or non-dragons, right?
Those are $5 cards as opposed to a $50 Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah, I would also say that in my experience, the general path of new players that get into the game and begin to see the raw power capabilities of really good cards get immediately attracted to that, and then over time they realize that actually building for synergy and for cohesiveness is actually more fun, satisfying, and allows for just better gameplay experiences that don't get so sometimes feel bad for new players or blowouts, right, in ways that actually leaves you with a kind of an unsettled, not fully satisfied taste in your mouth.
I told this story last time in the other episode that we did. We'll link that in the show notes where we talk about more cards that we don't think are worth the price and how to replace them. But like the first card I invested money in that I was like, I bought like a $15 card was Strip Mine. Which is expensive for a reason, but I didn't know what the reason was.
Right.
Like I would have been fine with a Ghost Quarter.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't dealing with Gaia's Cradles. I'm not trying to strip lock somebody's basic lands. I would have been fine with a Demolition Field or a Field of Ruin, and those are like 50-cent cards for my purposes. So I think knowing why you're spending money on a card, and the answer can be, I like it a lot. That's fine. It's a hobby. But don't necessarily invest in something just because you think it's powerful or somebody else says it's powerful. You have to actually know why and what you're going to do with it.
Yeah.
If not, just buy the dollar version and find out.
Yeah. And I'll also say that if you are looking to spend more money and you don't necessarily want to buy the Game Changers or whatever, there's other ways your money can get spent on Magic cards. You could pay for a cool altar of it. You could pay for a foil version of it. That makes you more satisfied. I'm sometimes more happy to play my 2 and a white Auramancer that's just a foil as opposed to a Teferi's Protection that costs way more. But the foil of it I spend a little bit more on, and it just makes me happy when I play it, right? There's other variables when it comes to Magic that's not just about power or synergy too. Don't forget. It's
an expensive hobby. Be careful about how you spend your money and make sure you're actually getting joy out of it.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't go down the path of burnout where you're like, I spend all my money on these expensive staples and whenever I play it, everyone is angry or unhappy and I don't even feel good about it, but my decks are more powerful, but I just don't get to play anymore and now I've spent all my money on these things. Like, there's other ways to derive happiness from your hobbies, right? Money is not necessarily just trying to buy power.
Yep. All right.
You'll get there eventually if you need it, so...
To the listeners, what cards are you glad you invested in? What are the ones that you're like, this is expensive, but I love it. I'm so happy to see it every time. What cards are on your must-buy list?
Maybe it was the cards they invested in was the signed Soul Rings that we sell and whatnot. Yeah, very happy about that.
There's a lot of really sweet cards out there. I spent a lot of money on really dumb ones. So
yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, me, it's artist proofs. That's where I'm like, oh man, this is so cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you were looking to pick up any of the cards that we talked about today, or hopefully some of the amazing, cool alternatives, head on over to cardkingdom.com/command. That's our affiliate link for the show. You can buy all of the cards from Card Kingdom's amazing category. Their inventory, there's so much Final Fantasy stuff. You're going to see those prices also going down over time because a lot of people are cracking those play boosters. So if you're looking for those cool bonus sheet cards or whatever it is to help make your deck extra special and glamorized, or just the straight raw power of an Esper Sentinel or all that, Card Kingdom.
Vivi or a tier.
Oh, Vivi. Oh, yeah, don't buy Vivi. No, that's it. You can buy Vivi. Don't let me tell you what to do. Go to cardkingdom.com. Except for this. Do this. Go to cardkingdom.com/command for all your Magic card needs. Get them all shipped to you in a single convenient package straight to your doorstep.
And once you have those cards, go to ultrapro.com/command. They've got a huge selection of Magic accessories. They've got playmats and binders, deck boxes, everything you need to make sure that your collection stays safe. So when you do invest in those cards, you know that nothing's going to happen to them. You double sleeve them. You make sure that when your friend spills their drink at game night, your cards are safe.
It's because you're playing in a bar. What are you doing?
I do that.
Yeah, I know.
It's fun. Also, keep an eye on the Ultra Pro website because recently I was on there for work stuff and I realized that all of their satin cubes were half off, and I bought. Yeah, they were like $6.
Oh my gosh!
I know.
They just sometimes do that for old stuff that they're trying to move inventory. Like 70. I've seen like 80% off some items. Sometimes.
I had no idea what was going on, and I was like, "Well, I'm buying a bunch, so I've got an Ultra Pro package coming to my doorstep because there was just a random sale happening." So sign up for that newsletter so you stay in the know and use our affiliate code to support the channel. Let them know we sent you at ultrapro.com/command.
All right, big thanks to our amazing team here at the Command Zone: Rachel Kendra, Karina Cruz, Sebastian Salazar, Gaurav Galati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridgeon, Jake Boss, Eric Lem, Manson Lung, Josh Murphy, Evan Limburger, Sam Waldo, and Josh Lee Kwai.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Peace out.